Let's go look at that. Stoked. Welcome back to the Dirthead Shed. It's time to get something off the floor in the shop. Make some space, you know what I mean? The big ticket item is the Nissan truck bed. I want to see that thing on the truck by the end of this week. There is still a bunch of work that has to happen on this chassis before the bed can go on there. Most of this suspension is kind of like tacked in place and half finished, so let's get in here and bust out a few little finished jobs. This should be fun. I've been wanting to see that on the truck for a long time, and I've also wanted to get that floor space back. So, all right, let's get busy. We got a lot to do here. The first project I want to tackle is gusseting this crossmember that I made for the upper wishbone. I want to tie the corners of this into the body mount here, whether it be plate or tubing, and then I also want to do a tube from here back to this tube just to kind of support that so that it doesn't want to like move forward and backward. Let's get those items started and see if that's a good warm-up for the day. Over here to the back side of my metal pile. I think that's 1.25 inches, and it's left over from some other project, so let's chop it up and use it for this one. I'm just going to eyeball a chunk out of this thing, and then we'll go start fitting it proper. That should be about right. Now I just got to notch it all up. I'm going to start by marking this angle, and then we'll go and cut that with the chop saw. Let's see if we're kind of close. That seems like that angle is going to be alright. Probably going to live about there. This is going to be kind of a funky notch because it's going into this tube that's like got a hard 90 on it, so it'll be a little bit of back and forth. When I'm notching this tubing, I just kind of have a mark on it, and I'm going to take with the chop saw and just cut right along that mark, basically coping the tube. That's the first of trying to get it to fit. We'll see how close we are. Not even, but we haven't cut too much yet, so that's good. Now I'm just gonna grind this by hand until I get the fitment that I want. Getting better. You just got to creep up on these things, you know? After a dozen trips to the grinder, that fits good. All right, that's the spot. It's good to go. Let's sand this up a little bit. Get the paint off of here so I can weld this thing in. Alright, let's go get the welder out. bust this one out real quick. Cool. Feel pretty good about this. It's a nice strong joint. So I have this whole wishbone thing is like putting a bunch of pressure on that bar, and I want to support it. The easiest one would be a tube from that crossmember to that crossmember, but I really don't want to like change, I don't want to screw up the look of all this. So my next option I was thinking was maybe go from this side of the mount and come back here to the bag mount. If I had a tube running there, it would be a little bit easier to hide, like tuck it up underneath the tube here and not have it kind of screw up the look of everything. But then I was just thinking, what if I throw a tube from here and go under the car and like tie it into the transmission crossmember or the carrier bearing crossmember? So that's what I want to put this thing up in the air and look and see if there's an option for that. Because if I can do a tube forward that'll support that bar to another crossmember and not have to see more tube work back here, I'm going to be stoked. All right, we're going in. I think this is going to be the jam right here. I've got this carrier bearing crossmember that's welded in. It doesn't need to unbolt. It's got a good spot right here on it, and I can shoot a tube and land like right here. Piece of cake. And that'll just kind of give that bar a little bit of peace of mind, really, more than anything. I don't know that it's 100% necessary on a mini truck to have that support there, extra support, but we're gonna put it in there. Let's see, what do we got? What do we got? I think I've determined that I'm going to use 1.5" tubing, and it needs to be about 30 inches long. I've got the Rogue Fab bender switched over to 1.5", so trying to figure out, this will work. I was going to cut a section of it off back here, but this one's really not that long, so I should be able to work with it. All right, let's get this thing set up. That should work fine. Get the slot pin out. Man, I haven't used the bender in a while. I think the last time I bent tubing was on the bag mounts for this car, this truck, and that was months ago. I'm getting rusty. I got the air hooked up. Let's bend it up. I'm gonna go about 70 degrees. All right, there's 55. I think I can go just a little bit more. We'll go about 60, call it good. I feel like that's my angle right there. There we go. All right. Now we're talking. I went through and I chopped the tube and just kind of got it sort of close so we can start fitting it for real. And basically I'm looking to notch that and have it fit awesome up there. That shouldn't be too hard, and then I'll shorten it and get it to fit down here, and it'll clear the body, it will clear the drive shaft, and it'll hold that cross member in place. So I think that's a win. It is definitely a win. All right, I'm gonna start notching this. Basically just coping this a little bit so that it fits onto that 1.75" tube, and then I'll shorten this a little more so we can get it close to where it's gonna live. There we go. And that is like right on. Heck yeah. All right, I just need to make a little bit more clearance on this over here so that I can kind of get it up and over this tab. There's a tab for that upper link bar, and I really want this thing to kind of like overlap it. So that'll get me over there a little bit. We're in the ballpark. This is good. All right, the tube is all notched and bent and fits really well. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw some paint on it right now because it's gonna be really difficult to paint the top side of it once it's welded in the truck. So I'm just gonna get paint where I know is gonna be hard to get to when it's in the truck, but I'm not gonna overdo it because I need to be able to weld and stuff clean on it. Let's just say I let that dry for 20 minutes. Boom. The hard to reach spots should have a decent amount of coating on them. Painted up, primered, good enough to go. Let's go weld it in here. Out of the paint booth trash can, and we'll fit this thing up and tack it in place. Ow! That hurt. Burnt my hand. Alright, I want this thing to follow the drive shaft tunnel just about perfect, which is like right there. Okay, the ground keeps sparking. I need to find a better spot for it. Go right there. Tube looks good in there. Gonna clear the drive shaft, no problem. It doesn't hit the body at all. It's gonna support things how it's supposed to do it. I'll grab my gloves and we'll burn this puppy in. Go. That's all tied into that cross member, runs back here and is all tied into that cross member. So I feel pretty good about that. We've got support on this side of the arm going to there, and we got support on that side of the arm going back over to the chassis. So I feel like we're pretty good to go on that. I dig it. That was a fun little project. I don't remember where we left off, but I'm out here today on Saturday and I cannot stop staring at the elephant in the room, and that is this ugly back wall seam on this truck. I cut this and started welding it, a couple years ago, and it was welding terrible. And it's because if you look in here, it's 2 layers of sheet metal, and between the layers there's like a sound deadening material. So when you weld it, the sound deadening material like blows all your gas out and contaminates the weld and like blows holes and does all kinds of bad stuff. So we're gonna address that. I came in here and checked, and it looks like, it's hard to tell, but it looks like if I cut below this line where those spot welds are at, I've got clean single layer of metal. And if I cut right there, I've also got a clean single layer of metal. And if I get rid of that chunk, I've got basically a 12-inch tall by 51-inch wide hole to fill. And I just happen to have some leftover scrap steel that's like a little over 12 inches tall. So I think what we're gonna do is just cut out the big ugly spot and start figuring out how to put some new metal in it. All right, I'm climbing in. Let's see if we can make something out of this. This has been frustrating me for a long time, so I'm totally fine with cutting this chunk of metal out of here. Now we just gotta cut across. I think I'll cut the bottom first. Awesome. Get that thing out of here. Just imagine the stereo system I could throw in here. This is the back wall, and it's 2 layers thick. And if you look right here, between the 2 layers, I can pull some out. There is this like asphalt sound deadener between the 2, and it keeps the thing quiet, not vibrating. But every time I was welding it, every time I welded anything on here, it would just burn big holes. And you can see here where I was like chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. So this is an electrogalv sheet metal. It's like a really light galvanizing on it. I've used this on all kinds of car projects, and it welds pretty good actually, and it doesn't put off a bunch of nasty gas. This was left over at a recycle yard, so it was probably a quarter a pound or something. So it's cool using up all this stuff, and it seems like it works good. That's crazy. That was like butter. Good job, Hercules. These things rip. Alright. This thing's kind of dirty from being out at the yard. I feel like this is pretty good fitment. I can get a nice weld here. I can get a nice weld down here. I can fill in these little corners, and I can fill in this like triangle wedge shape that's on both sides. That's kind of a win. I hurting my arm. I was embarrassed to even have you guys looking at that. Oh my gosh, this is burned the fire on myself. This is pretty cool. It's coming together quick. It's coming together quickly. I'm going in for the night. I've got a like bonus video going out tomorrow on Sunday, so pretty stoked. That thing's making some progress. I didn't even really expect to get to do that, but that other wall just made me so mad every time I looked at it. Anywho, I'm gonna go in, upload this video. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching all this stuff. It's pretty rad getting to do what I like doing and having almost 100,000 subscribers. It's going to be rad to see where this channel goes. Alright, we'll be back out here tomorrow. Alright, neighbor Richard's over here helping me unload all the junk out of the bed, and then we're going to get the bed put on the lift. So I got to get the Nissan out of the way first. Ready? Yep. It was pretty awkward and heavy when I was moving it around by myself the other day.
Okay.
I'll let you go down and do yours.
Okay.
Kind of like that. That was easy. Sweet. Thanks for your help, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, anytime. It's easy.
Let me know when you need help down in your shop.
All right, will do.
That was cool. The bed's in a spot where I can work on it now. And the goal here was so that I can like lift and lower it and get it onto the truck and start figuring out what the plan is. So I can start figuring out what the plan is for bed mounts in the back. I think first I'm gonna have to take some measurements and cut a section for the notch out, because even with the bed being raised extra, it's not quite raised enough to not have a hole in the floor. So kind of a bummer, but that's, I was trying to like just get this truck done kind of simple. And yes, I could have raised the floor even more and like kept the wheel tubs but raised the bed floor even higher, but I don't really care if I have a hole in the bed or if I even just like cut this section out and raise it and then fill it back in, kind of like the back is. So it's time to quit worrying about all those little details and the woulda, coulda, shouldas and just start getting this thing done. Cool. The bed is sort of on the truck. Truck's actually just kind of weaseled under there. And obviously it's not all the way down right now. But I do have confirmation that the tires aren't going to rub the fenders, at least on the stock fender lips, which is cool. I believe the next step is going to be figure out how big of a hole to cut for the bed and make sure that we have room for everything. So I'm going to crawl around under there and figure out like how close everything already really is. I'm laying on the ground checking out what's under the truck and where we're going to end up having to cut. And it's going to be a big hole. I'm going to have to cut up the sides a little bit, which is kind of part of the inner fender well. So I need to crawl under here and make some actual marks, and we'll chop this thing and then hopefully set the bed to where it's actually really going to live. More cutting. All that. All right, I climbed under there and got my measurements for where I want to cut this hole. 32 from the back, 49.5. I'm just going to keep marking this across. I've got the lines all marked out, and I'm going to start my cuts with the cutoff wheel here, and then I'm going to switch over to a sawzall. I guess I'll reach across and try and get a straight line out of this. Not bad. One more little section and this piece should come out. Cool. Let's see if I can get this thing out of here without cutting my hand. All the edges are sharp. That's more than I was hoping to cut out of there, but that's what we did. What I'm hoping is we can get this thing down in place and just make some like quick spacers for the front bed mounts that are kind of in the right space, you know? All right, until I can make proper spacers, I'm gonna use just a couple of chunks of 2-inch square tube and some hole saw remnants. And that should get it to where I can like space the front of the bed up the proper amount, and then we'll address how to space the rear and then see what we're working with. 2-inch square tube, and then we'll do 3 little 1/8-inch spacers on top of that. See if that gets us in the ballpark. All right. For now, we'll throw some 2x4s up in there, and that will allow us to get the bed resting on the chassis instead of on the lift. Lift up with one arm and slide that out with the other. Cool. Same thing over here. All right. The bed's on the truck. Let me get this stuff out of the way real quick, and then I have to see this thing on the ground. I gotta see it. Almost ground myself. Let's go set a camera shot up. Stoked, super stoked right now. Let's see how it looks aired out. Sorry about all the junk in the way. Maybe move this intake. No. All right, and roll it forward just a little bit. Ready? Front down. Yeah, I'm like kind of geeking out right now. It actually hit the bed on the ground. Oh, I got bolts down here from when I built those braces. Ah, that's all right. That gets you the idea the bed's like 1/4 inch off just because I got hardware that's hanging down. Let's go look at that. Check it out. Tuck and wheel, and it's like nice and centered in the wheel well. Ah, that's awesome. So cool. So cool. I don't know if I'm gonna... Oh man, it's rad. So rad. Stoked. Super stoked. All right. I gotta go pick my kid up from track practice, and I'll get back to working on this thing later. Heck yeah. All right, I'm back in the shop. It's Tuesday morning. I am closing in on the end of my cool little vacation at home. Got to go back to work tomorrow, and today I actually am going to be shooting some videos for Skyjacker, so I don't know that I'm going to get a chance to work on this thing, which is a bummer, but I had to at least get some shots of it. It's so rad. I went back and I put some shorter bolts in down here and ran them in the up direction so that the bolts aren't like trying to lift the bed off the ground. And now we've actually got like our bed gap and all that stuff like spot on. Super cool. When I body dropped this, when I cut the floor out and raised it up, I also scooted it forward 3/4 of an inch so that when I bolted it back down, it came and brought the cab back 3/4 of an inch. And that closes up that gap like perfect. So this thing looks like, it looks so good. Tucking a ton of wheel. I'm stoked. I had to take a little bit of a break on the truck for a few days. Had to get some other work done and put out some other videos and go to work for a week. So it's now time to get back here and get on the Nissan again. I want the bed bolted on before this video is done. So let's get in here, put it back on the lift, and start working towards making bed mounts for this thing. It looks sick, but I want to see it outside and see it laid out. They never look as cool when they're in the shop. Too much junk in the way. If you look over there on the welder, I got my shocks for this thing. And I need to kind of get cracking on that project too. One thing at a time though. Let's do these bed mounts. Check it out, it's Sunday. Last night I actually did get a little bit of work done, but I didn't film much of it. A couple of friends of mine stopped by and I was just kind of working away on these, reinforcing the bed mount on the bed while they were hanging out, and I didn't film much of it, but this is all tied back together. It was cut when I did the body drop on the bed, so I just kind of like reattached it, gusseted it a little bit, and got it all sort of put back together. So now we can actually come in here and make a bed mount that is on the chassis side, and things should stay put. I think I found the perfect tubing for the body mounts. I had picked up this chunk of 2x3 120 square tube at the scrapyard recently, and it's going to be perfect for knocking out these bed mounts. So I'm just going to chop it up, and then I'll kind of explain what we're doing here in a second. That should be perfect. There's one bed mount. So I'm going to take that tube that I cut it off of and just flip it over, mark it, and I should only have to cut that angle once, but get 2 symmetrical body mounts out of the deal. Boom. 2 body mounts, just like that. Just sand these up and then drill them, and then we'll go weld them onto the truck, and I'll show you how all that goes down. Check it out. I got the holes drilled, and I'm actually adding like a little boxing portion on the back. And that's basically just gonna help box in this and then also help locate it on the frame and give it something so that it's easy to like drop down onto the frame and know that it's square. Nice and clean. The little plate is gonna help it rest on the frame nice and square. And then I will get it like butted right up against the edge here. Yeah, that's good. Thing's not gonna fall off. All right, bed mounts in place and welded up and looking good. I think I've got to move on to doing this mount up here, the side mount. So I think what I can do is go ahead and pull these blocks of wood out that are in here, set that down and get some hardware in the back. That way I know it's like squared and tight, and then when I make these ones, I can just go ahead and get them right up against it. And if I have to space the bed up a little bit, then I can get in there with washers and shim it. But I think it's gonna be pretty good without any. Check that out. Getting the side mounts in place. Again, I just used some square tube and cut it off at an angle and drilled a hole in it. It makes for a quick mount, gusset, everything all in one. These ones I'll box the back side of them in after I pull the bed off and finish some other stuff. But we're getting close. Kind of cool, quick project. Get a quick shot of that one. Looking pretty good. Got the 4 back bed mounts in place. So I think we're doing all right. Maybe I'll come over here and we can figure out what I'm doing with the spacers up in the front. And I have this plastic, hard plastic nylon that I used for body mounts on Mom's spaghetti. But the problem with this stuff is it's kind of hard to cut straight in the bandsaw. I have that little portaband, and then I have this saw, and this just gets too hot and chunks or like melts the rubber. So check this out. All right. I've got this saw that I've been hauling around for ages. It's a metal cutting Makita, has a carbide tip blade on it. So let's throw this up on the bench and see if I can cut this plastic straight with it. I know the blade is kind of jacked for cutting steel right now. That's why I don't use it much. But maybe, just maybe it'll cut the plastic really nice. Let's try and make a squared up cut. Let's see if it works. All right, fire in the hole. All right, the metal cutting saw is cutting it pretty good. Let's keep going. It's weird, it makes this fuzz. It looks like steel wool, but it's plastic. Let's see how the cut looks. That's like perfect. I think we just figured out a way to make some front spacers. Oh boy. That got weird. The blade on here just like overheated or something. It's like, it's not supposed to do that. That's wild. It's not terribly hot. Huh, whatever. That was kind of a junk cut, but it might work for what we're doing. Well, that was fun. I'll go park this saw back over there for another 3 years and drag it out for another project at some point. I really want to buy one of those like Evolution saws so that I can have a good metal blade saw, but I don't really feel like spending the money on it right now. I got a little 1/4-inch pilot hole or so in there. And now I'm drilling to 1/2 inch. Watch this, it gets really weird. It just basically draws it up. That's wild. All right, plastic is weird. I might have found just the thing. Got 2 grade 8 7/16 by 4 bolts, washers, and nylocks. So let's go see if we can get this thing together. Okay, bed bolts are in. That was a pain. It's like they just weren't lining up, and now I got this 3-inch thick spacer in there that's like, it was just a pain. Let's tighten them up and just snug them down all the way around and lower this thing on the ground and see how the bed gap looks. I think it's going to be pretty dialed. I may need to like add a shim here and there, but I think we're pretty close. Oh, come on. Jeez. Sunday night. The truck's telling me to go to bed. Go get a real job. Bed's on and doing its thing. It's not all flopping around. Look at that bed gap. Dang. It's like perfect. This is awesome. Heck yeah. I don't think you could get... Oh my gosh. This thing's great. I love it. It's like spot on, and I don't have to have a bunch of shims in it and junk. Cool. Check it out. It's Monday. I just got home from work. I went for a mountain bike ride. Now I want to see how this truck looks outside because it's got the bed on it now. I got those mounts made yesterday and it's looking good. So let's throw jumper cables on this thing, pull it outside and see how it looks. Let's see if it'll start today. Come on, little truck. Oh, it was trying, and then it just stopped. Every time. Come on, battery. Whoa, that one sounded weird. Ha ha! Oh dang, it's got the bed on it. God, it looks cool. Now we're talking. This thing is so good. Ah, it's rad. I can't believe how cool it looks. Stoke the bed is on and we're making progress. It's so dope. Thanks for watching the Dirt Head Shed. We'll be back next week and we're gonna keep tackling more little items on this thing, and hopefully we'll be taking it to a show soon, because it's definitely show season right now. It's beautiful out. Oh, that's sick.